Miracles we have seen. Chapter 13. Miracle of the Indian Girl. Her real name was Ventura Chocanapi, an Aymara Indian teenager who lived with us in the subtropical mountains of the Bolivian Yungas. This is one of the most scenic mountain ranges in Bolivia, if not the world. From here one can see the snow-capped Andean mountains of the high plains. But this is also coffee country. Here all types of fruits and vegetables grow. It is here also that the deadly cocoa is grown. The majority of Yungas inhabitants chewed the leaf from which cocaine is derived. It has had a devastating effect on the health and life expectancy of many of the natives from this area. But our Ventura was an exceptional young lady. She was both beautiful and industrious. She lived with us in the mission compound and helped with our 3 young children and the duties of the household. But she was more than a maid to us. She was like our own daughter, and participated in most of the activities of our family. She was also a fine little Christian. However, Ventura was quite shy and said very little unless prodded. She had almost no education, though she was quite fluent in Aymara, her native tongue. She was also articulate in Spanish. We loved Ventura. She was a great little mother to our 3 children, Deborah, Stephen, and Marcia. She would greet me each morning with a hot cup of coffee and heated water for shaving. She lived with us for almost 3 years. One day Ventura announced that she was planning to get married. Her husband-to-be was our mission organist and language translator, Juan Chopani. Sermons in that part of Bolivia must be carried in 2 languages. She and Juan seemed to be a perfect match. We celebrated their wedding with a lovely ceremony, a meal, and a reception. The entire festivity lasted more than 8 hours. We were excited for Juan and Ventura. Their marriage began well. We celebrated this promising young couple as potential leaders for our church, located in a village of more than 5,000 people. But things worsened for Ventura when we left Bolivia in 1958 to return to America. Juan, now a student in a liberal Bible seminary, had become abusive and controlling. We received letters from Juan and Ventura, but very little information was given us since only one was able to correspond. Then we heard that Juan and Ventura had divorced. Ventura now had 3 little boys to care for. We received fragments of information over the next few years. We tried to send financial help from time to time. Ventura had moved without leaving a forwarding address. Then we'd lost contact with Ventura and her struggling family altogether. In 1997, Winona and I returned to Bolivia with Dario Nunez, Hispanic pastor of Christ Community Church in Sheridan, Indiana. We wanted to try to locate a number of our former teenagers and church leaders. We hoped to find Ventura. We arrived in La Paz in mid-October and had a message waiting for us. Ventura had heard through the Bolivian grapevine that we were coming. Could we meet? Plans were made immediately to see our former housemate, family babysitter, and daughter. We were so excited. Then the moment arrived, and we were holding Ventura in our arms. The changes in Ventura were incredible. Now she was a beautiful middle-aged woman with a great story to share. That story was miraculous. For over 2 hours, Ventura shared the wonderful and frightening life story of what had happened to her since 1958. Ventura knelt beside my chair. She brought Winona close by my side. She then laid her hands upon us and told her miracle story. "Pastor," she began in fluent Spanish, "I want to tell you about my life. After you and Winona left Bolivia, Juan, my husband, began to be abusive to me, as well as to the children. After our third son was born, Juan started drinking and seeing another woman. Many times he beat me. Finally, he threw all of us out on the street. We had nowhere to go. We had no family, no food, no place to live. I did not know where to go or what to do. I feared that we would starve to death or freeze in the high-altitude temperatures at night. Then I remembered what you taught me. You and Senora said God would hear and help me if I would be faithful to Him. You both told me that no matter how serious the problems were, that I must always pray and believe. I had no other choice. So I prayed. Most of the time, I held all three of my sons to keep them warm and would pray all night long. I prayed that God would spare my children. We sometimes found food in garbage barrels. Sometimes the children became ill, and I had nothing to give them. There was no help of any kind for us. All I knew to do was to pray. I became a woman who prayed day and night for help and guidance. This went on for months. Then the answer came. Ventura's little brown face was now streaked with tears. Then, mysteriously, everything began to change. People began to give us food. Then I had enough food left over to sell on the streets. Soon I had saved enough money to open a little sidewalk food shop. Everyone seemed to buy my bread and coffee. There were many other such snack shops, but it seemed that most everyone was buying from me. It was unbelievable. Before long I had enough money to open 2 coffee and bread shops. There was more to this fabulous story. With the profit from my shops, I was able to find a place to live. I could now send my little boys to school. God began to bless me in many other ways, Ventura exulted. Churches, hearing about my story, began to call me to come and teach their women how to cope with circumstances like I had suffered. Many women in La Paz had been abused, abandoned, and thrown out on the streets. Pastors and church leaders felt that I could help these desperate people. Soon I was kept busy most weekends, speaking to women's groups about how faith and prayer would see them through their fiery trials. God blessed my new ministry in so many ways. Ventura shared her wonderful story of how her entire life had been transformed through prayer. We could not believe that this was the same little girl that we had known more than 40 years ago. We were transfixed by her radiance and enthusiasm as she continued her saga of faith and deliverance. We waited to hear more of her breathtaking story. Her sons finished high school, and I was able to send them to college. Today my sons are all college graduates. One is a professor of music, another son is a teacher, and the other one a veterinarian. 2 of them have received scholarships to study in Spain. They all love and serve the Lord. We were weeping after hearing this tragic yet miraculous story. Then Ventura laid her hands upon us and said, "I want to bless you for the many things you and Winona taught me when I was a young girl. I want to thank you especially for teaching me to pray." For the next hour, the formerly shy Indian maid, now a confident prayer warrior and lecturer, prayed for us. Our hearts overflowed with blessing and joy. Our tears and praise joined in a medley of worship. This was our Ventura. We would never lose her again. We had seen with our own eyes what prayer could do. It was miraculous. Will you consider becoming a part of your church's prayer ministry? This is miracle territory. Pray that God will give you a prayer partner, and together you can reach the Venturas of this world. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Matthew 7:7. Remember, we have not because we ask not.